G'day guys, good to see you again, or if you're new, thank you so much for stopping by. Thought I'd start off with an Australian greeting, being in Australia and all. But the first thing I want to say, before I get into the main two topics of this video, which you would have seen from the title, My Awakening Non-Experience, and Non-Duality, Sex, Power, Money, whatever I'm going to call this. I make the video and then make the title later, but it's going to be around that general thing. First thing I want to say though is shout outs. I am so grateful and humble to have this little community around my YouTube channel. I used to post every day, and one thing I noticed, the YouTube algorithm loves daily posting. But the thing is, YouTube is a machine. I cannot work for the machine, especially talking about spirituality. I'm all about balance, and daily videos was really affecting my inner peace and balance. So I found it hypocritical to talk about something that if I'm slowly losing it, why talk about it? So I'm down to 2 days a week at the time of recording this video, Mondays and Thursdays, Australian time. But I just want to say, I'm so humble and grateful for you guys. And I just want to shout out to long-term subscribers, Johnny and Josh. You guys, they're always commenting, always active in the comment sections, buying me coffees on my Buy Me a Coffee page. I just want to say, again, to them and to everyone that's done that, thank you so much. And even if you haven't, it doesn't matter. Just the likes, the comments, just the little community we're building, I'm really grateful for. Another thing I want to mention with Josh, he recommended me a channel. He said, maybe you want to do some video commentary on this channel or do a collab. Her name's Maddie. She talks about, I watched a couple of videos. The theme is basically parents that have been alienated from their children or children that have grown up alienated from one parent. And she speaks very well and she has found a really good niche. But listening to her content, I don't know how I can resonate with it. I don't know how I could make the leap from spirituality to her kind of content. So I won't be reaching out, making a collab or whatever, but it is a good niche. And thank you so much for the recommendation. So many people are going through that experience, what she's talking about. Also, while I'm talking about channel collabs and all that kind of stuff, that's what inspired me to firstly talk about my awakening non-experience. Another channel reached out probably a month ago now, asking if they could do an interview with me. They interview spiritual channels and you give your experiences, all that kind of stuff. The reason I didn't accept that offer is because spirituality is an umbrella term for so many belief systems, ways of viewing reality. And many people have these mind-blowing experiences, enlightening experiences, but because I'm into the path of non-duality, non-duality is the path of knowledge. It's ultimately very boring. But having said that, it'll change your life in a down-to-earth way. They say the problem is ignorance, the solution is knowledge. You don't need to have all these amazing mystical experiences. They're useful and all, but I had no interesting story to tell. Let me tell you briefly my awakening non-experience. And you'll see how boring it is. But it's very down to earth. I grew up for the longest time feeling insecure, incomplete, low self-esteem, introverted. Now, there's nothing wrong with introversion, by the way. I'm still introverted. But I can go out and interact, have fun, joke around, socialize. But back then I was introverted, low self-esteem. This was really an issue in my early 20s. As a kid, I was happy, fun, playful. Teenage years, getting a bit depressed. Early 20s, I was a victim to life. I hated life, hated the world. All this kind of negative content that's so popular these days. There's a saying I once heard, if it bleeds, it leads. That's a saying from the news, I think. Basically, tragedy, problems, negativity sells. And it's so true, because we're programmed to detect problems. That's just how our mind's structured. So that's why a lot of negative content is popular. People talking about problems, people hating life, very popular. And they're going to be very successful and make a fair bit of money. Good on them. I wish them all the best. But I was like that in my early 20s. And what happened to me was hated life, hated the world, no social skills, blamed everything on the world. At a certain point, I thought, if I'm going to be miserable, I might as well be miserable with a better looking body. I was very thin, started hitting the weights. Then when I started getting into a weightlifting routine, I started thinking, I'm looking a bit better, but I have no social skills. So if I'm going to be miserable with a better looking body, at least learn the art of talking to others. I was single at the time and wanted a relationship. I did all the practices of socializing, all the tips that you find online. It kind of worked, but it kind of felt fake. I would go on little dates and they'd be very awkward. I'd meet these people online back when it wasn't cool because I was very insecure. But yeah, I had a nervous energy about me still. I tried to implement all the tips, but the root problem was what non-duality will solve for you, the feeling of separation. That's what's causing all this to happen. You feel separate, so it radiates outwardly. The feeling of separation generates the feeling of fear, and that is responsible for all your misery and suffering. I just thought I'd quickly add that in. But in any case, worked on the body, did a bit of self-improvement socially. It would have come off as fake and not genuine, but I tried. Slowly started getting into meditation, Buddhism, Neo-Advaita, then finally traditional Advaita Vedanta teachings. I've been on this path for 11 years. And it's only within the last 2 to 3 years, something shifted in me. You know what this is like? Here's how I can describe it. You know when you have a headache, you have a throbbing headache, you take a Panadol, and you don't know when. Before you know it, the headache has just gone, but you don't know the exact time. You don't have a headache and then write down exactly 13 minutes and 30 seconds in, the headache went. It just happens. If you understand what I'm saying, the headache just goes and you're like, I don't have a headache anymore. What I'm getting at is that's what my awakening non-experience, I can describe it as. I hated life. I was in misery. I was in suffering. I was a very enthusiastic spiritual seeker. I had worldly problems, started getting into spirituality, started having spiritual problems, which is, I've got worldly problems, now I've got spiritual problems, I can't meditate as much as I can, or if I do meditate, it's not working. What is this enlightenment I'm trying to achieve? See how I started thinking, I had worldly problems, cool. Now I've got spiritual problems, my problems have doubled. This is so annoying. But I stuck at it. And eventually all these teachings just clicked. It would have been probably 2 or 3 years ago. Everything I speak about just clicked. Hammering my intellect with knowledge, doing spiritual practice, karma yoga, devotion, meditation. That's why I encourage it so much, guys. Eventually what's going to happen is it's going to shift and it's going to become your way of being. There's a saying in the Bhagavad Gita, which I'll be covering in my next video. By the way, if you're new, every second video I'm doing some commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. And there is a beautiful saying in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, in chapter 18. Happiness in the mode of goodness is like poison in the beginning and nectar in the end. What that verse is basically saying is, anything that will give you long-term happiness is hard work in the beginning. Spirituality is tiring, boring, annoying, listening to talks, reading scriptures, spiritual practice, but eventually it becomes a way of life and you love it. You understand oneness and you act in accordance with oneness, it becomes automatic and there's your awakening non-experience. And that's what I'm saying. My story is very boring. I went from feeling insecure, separate, low self-esteem, started working on the body, social skills, spiritual knowledge and practice. And now I am so much more happier, peaceful and content. I feel like I have done what was needed to be done in this life. I'm in a state of inner peace. I found what I was seeking. And it just feels right. I went through all those stages of overthinking, non-dual knowledge. The world is an appearance. It's an illusion. Stay away. Why get caught up in it? That's still attachment to the world, by the way, just quickly. We go from being attached to the world, thinking I'm a person in the world, there's happiness in it. Then we get some knowledge of I'm the pure witness, and then we go, it's an illusion, stay away. I'm not part of this. I'm not the body, mind, or the world. That's still an attachment. You're attaching to the pure witness. And this is a phase you have to go through. You were so identified with the body and caught up in the world, you need to go through that detached phase, but eventually it's a non-dual teaching. You need to embrace this reality back into yourself. They lied to you in non-duality. In fact, you are the body and mind. But everything else. See, we think I'm this person, but I'm not this world. They show you in the initial stages, yeah, you're not the world, you were right, but you're also not the body. You're not the body, mind, intellect, all that kind of stuff. But then you start asking, what are you? You're the pure witness. You're the fundamental nature of this reality. And being the fundamental nature of this reality, you are totally free from this creation, yet the fabric it's made from. In other words, you need to go one step back, but then 2 steps forward. What is that second step forward? Reclaim the body again? Yes, I really was the body. The precious body, I was all along. But you also need to claim all of this reality. And that's why it's non-dual. And that's why you'll look at on this reality, the same reality, it's not going to change dramatically. It's not going to burst into an amorphous mass of light. It's going to look exactly like it was, but your perspective has shifted. You realize what this is what I am. So embrace it. Get lost in it. Have fun. Experience it. Appreciate it. All the while knowing you're free from it. You're free from all experience, yet the fabric it's all made from. So there's no need to feel I'm an insignificant character trying to grab little bits of happiness. There's no reason to think I'm the pure witness, I need to detach, avoid people. You're avoiding what you're made from. So the beautiful twist to all this is you go to the witness state and then you embrace this reality back into yourself. It's such a beautiful... If your spiritual journey was like a movie, it's that final twist in the movie. It's beautiful. The path is love. Love is what oneness feels like. If you don't find love for this reality, you're not there yet. I'm sorry. Love is always the answer. Such a cliche, but it's true. So there's my awakening non-experience. Felt like I was in suffering, did a lot of absorb my intellect in spiritual knowledge, spiritual practice. 2 or 3 years ago, something happened. It all fell into place. Now it's my way of living. And I can't unsee this. I can't unfeel this. It's part of me. It's more clear to me now than it was when I was thinking I'm a person living a life. You clearly see it's just an act. The person still continues. You become a genuine pretender. Everyone's on their own unique path. You're going to get there in the end if you're not already. So that clears up that part. Now, for the rest of this video, I want to talk about non-duality, power, sex, and money. Non-duality comes from where? The Vedas. Ancient knowledge. They say the Vedas are 5,000 plus years old. They say the Vedas are divine knowledge, not of human origin. Veda translates into knowledge. And this Vedic culture, 5,000 plus years ago, were so wise, so ahead of their time. The trap we fall into as modern humans is thinking, because we have modern technology, we're so smart. Yes, we have a lot of great technology, but intellectually, we're still the same. Our mind is still the same. We still have feelings of anger, greed, fear, feelings of separation from this reality. We still operate the same internally. Honestly, are we any happier than they were thousands of years ago? If happiness was measured by material success, yeah, okay, we're happy. But internally, why is there so much depression, misery? Why are so many people feeling isolated, cut off? we might be wealthy on the outside, but internally, a lot of people are bankrupt. You know what the root cause of that is? Separation. In Western culture, we've cut ourselves off, even from religion. Humans always need something to devote to. Now, the wise way to do it is to a higher power. The unwise way to do it is through materialism. We're always worshipping something. You think you don't worship anything? You're worshipping money. You're worshipping power. You're worshipping success, sex. If you're not spiritual, that's what you're worshipping. We're always devoting to something. We're always looking up to something or someone. So the smart way to do it is a god, being a biased spiritual person, of course. The unwise way to do it is materialism. And why is that ultimately? Because the spiritual path is anchoring your mind and intellect in something unchanging, permanent. That's what we're seeking. Permanent, unchanging. This world is constantly changing. The things we desire are constantly changing. Our mind is very fickle. And the objects we desire are constantly changing. How much time and energy have you put into pursuing people, relationships, and objects? Only for a year or two later, sometimes less, sometimes longer, begin to not like the people or objects you've pursued. Nothing against that. That's what I'm saying. That's what we're all doing. We're crazy. The human mind is so fickle. At least the animals are very consistent with what they want. Food, shelter, water, reproduction. We want all those things too, but then we also I want pleasurable experiences. I have all these hobbies, passions, interests. I like that person to be this way. That's how crazy it is, by the way. You want someone to be a certain way. You're angry that they're not. Imagine if they changed to your liking and now you're very happy. What happens when your preference changes? What they're meant to change for you? See how crazy it is. They're constantly changing. Your likes and dislikes are constantly changing. They occasionally line up, but then they're out of alignment again. This is madness. This is why we're all suffering. First of all, we think we're a separate person in a separate world, and we're focusing on the changing. And that was the beautiful thing. And that was the beautiful thing about this Vedic culture. They recognized this reality is the one source appearing separate. One appearing separate, and out of that oneness, an infinite number of forms have emerged. And as humans, we're all different. Big, small, different color skins, different personalities, introverted, extroverted. Some people are very passionate about the world. Some people are more introverted. That's the beautiful thing about this ancient culture. They recognized everyone is unique. We're all part of a unified whole. We've all got a role to play. And there is a lot of criticism about the caste system. But the original caste system wasn't how you may have heard it, how you're born into the caste system and that's it. You can never progress. You can't mingle with other caste systems. Apparently, from what I heard, that came later. But the original way the caste system was created was they viewed, just say, reality like a human body. You have a head, you have arms, you have a torso, you have legs. That's to make a complete person. The head would be classed as the Brahmins, the priests, those that knew this knowledge inside out and could direct and guide everyone else. They were the head. The arms were classed as the warriors, the kings. The body was classed as the farmers, the merchants, all that kind of stuff. The workers were classed as the legs. Now you could look at this and go, the head is better than the legs. That's one way to look at it. The head is superior to the legs. Or you can look at it like, the legs are the foundation. Without workers, how is everything else going to operate? It's like an organization. In a big company, everyone's got a different role to play, from the cleaners to the CEO and everyone in between. But just watch what happens if the cleaners go on strike. If you think, I'm better than the cleaners, I earn so much more, I'm more important, Let every cleaner go on strike, see how good the office looks. The toilets will be messy, there'll be junk everywhere. Cleaners play an important role. I probably don't have to tell you that. What happens if there is no leader of the company? No one has any guidance. What happens is if there's no one in the middle to follow the instructions of the leader? Everything falls apart. Reality is a unified whole, and that's what they were getting at. Also, the caste system was based on your inclinations originally, which is, I have an inclination for knowledge. As you may well know, if you're into non-duality too, it's all about knowledge, studying, contemplation. I would go into the Brahman class, just based on my tendencies. Other people, they're real go-getters in the world. They're drawn to leadership roles, getting things done in this world. That would be classed as the warrior class or the kings. I personally have no desire for power, for status, all that kind of stuff. I just like to keep to myself, study knowledge. That's my enjoyment. Like I said, some people are really into being a leader. Leadership, guiding an army, guiding an organization. That would be the arms. Other people are like, look, I don't like sitting around thinking, contemplating, reading. I don't need to be a leader. I just want to be a successful business person, entrepreneur, merchant. That would be the body. I don't want to work for anyone. I want to work for myself. That kind of feel to it. And a lot of people out there just say, look, all this stuff about being a leader, burying your head in books, working for myself, look, yeah, it would be cool, or I like to read a little bit, but look, I just want to do my job and go home. I have my little hobbies, passions, and interests. I just go to work for money, come home. That's all I want to do. That's a lot of people out there. There's nothing wrong with that. We need workers, don't we? We need the foundation for a society to function. The workers do their job and go home. The merchants, entrepreneurs in the middle, need workers. We need leaders. We need people to govern life. We also needed the priests and the Brahmins under an ideal system to guide society. That's why they were at the head, guiding society. Because this whole culture was built on oneness from the Vedas. Imagine living in a time like that now, where we all realize we're an interconnected whole. From the most simplest job to the most complicated, we're all working towards a common goal. Again, much like a company. When you're part of a big organization, everyone's working for the common good of the company. And what is the common good? For that company to make money, to be successful. But imagine taking that concept out to the entire world. That was the Vedic culture. They realized it was the one appearing separate. Everyone has a role to play. Also, everyone is slowly making their way to ultimately liberation. The Vedas are divided into two sections. The majority of the Vedas are dealing with security, pleasure, ethics. The smallest part of the Vedas is dealing with liberation, enlightenment. In other words, the Vedas knew as a human, we have certain goals in life, which you'll see here. We require security, pleasure, ethics, and ultimately enlightenment. Most people in this life, if you're a good, decent person by worldly standards, that's what we're seeking. We want security, we want a bit of pleasure, and we want to do it in an ethical way. Most people, they just say, look, I want this world, I think there's happiness in it, and I don't want to be too much of a jerk. That's what the Vedas were dealing with, showing you how to live a life where you can secure security, pleasure, and do it in an ethical way. And when you start doing that, and you start getting tired of this, if you view the world like toys, if you want the toys, they'll show you how to get the toys. But when you start getting bored of the toys and thinking, the toys are good and all, is there anything more? That's where the smallest part of the Vedas come in, the Upanishads, dealing with moksha, liberation. A beautiful way to look at this is, imagine God like a mother, and we're like the children. If you're crying and screaming, God, the mother, will give you toys, give you your favorite teddy bear, your favorite toy truck. That'll keep you entertained. Imagine if one day that happened, you're crying, she gives you the teddy and the toy truck, and you still start crying. You throw the toys away, what's she going to do next? Scoop you up. You don't want the toys. You're not crying for the toys, you're crying for mum. So she'll drop what she's doing, scoop you up, because that's what you want. You want mum, not the toys. What I'm trying to illustrate in this example is, if you want toys, they'll show you how to get the toys of the world. You want pleasurable experiences, material, success, power, all that kind of stuff. They're the toys of the world. Here's how to get them. But at a certain point, you outgrow the toys, like we all do. We renounce our toys. And renouncing happens naturally, by the way. You're fascinated with toys as a kid. You don't grow up to be a teenager and go, oh, I'd really want to still play with those toys, but I'm going to have some self-control, discipline. Maybe I should just touch it a little bit. No, you just grow up as an adolescent and go, yeah, I appreciated the toys when I was young. Nothing against them, but I've kind of outgrown them. That's the mindset of a spiritual seeker. You've had your fun with the world. You get how it works. You get good, you get bad. You get pleasure, you get pain. You understand the routine, you think, is that it? That's how you naturally renounce the world. And that's where the Upanishads come in. For those people that have realized the limitations of the world, and they want more. They want God or they want enlightenment. And that's again why these Vedas are so beautiful. They cater to every stage of human life. They saw everything as one unified whole. Everyone's at different stages. Everyone should just be as they are. That's why also there's a saying in the Rig Veda, the truth is one, the wise speak about it differently. They viewed religion like a shoe size. If Christianity was shoe size 10, Islam shoe size 8, Hinduism shoe size 12, it doesn't matter the exact sizes. What they're basically saying is, just as there's different color skin, different heights, different genders, different personalities, there's many ways to get to the ultimate truth. You need to pick the path based on your personality type. You need to pick the shoe that fits. If you're a size 9 foot and you try to put your foot into a size 8, you might get it in, but it's going to be a little bit tight. If you put it in a size 12 shoe, it's going to be too loose. In other words, there wasn't a rigid way to do things. Another way to look at this is, if the goal was to get to the top of the mountain, we're all at the bottom of the mountain arguing on the best starting point at the bottom. Some people say start from here, others say start from here or here. Stop arguing at which point at the bottom to start from. All you need to do is pick your starting point, keep your head down, keep working hard to get to the top. We're all going to get to the top. So many people are getting bogged down in the details. Christianity is the right way. Islam, Judaism. Hinduism clearly saw that we're all slowly going to get there in the end, but we're all at different starting points. We all have different personalities. And that again is why the Bhagavad Gita is so beautiful. That's why I'm dedicating every second video to studying that book. They call that a Brahma Vidya text, which is basically roughly translated into knowledge of the absolute, the science of understanding God, of Brahman, of your true self. You understand the absolute, and you're also told how to live in this world. That's why the Bhagavad Gita is such a treasure. The more I read it, the more wisdom and insights I'm constantly finding. If you're going to study one book, it's that. It's your guidebook to enlightenment. Beautiful stuff. But to slowly wind down this video, guys, all I want to say is non-duality isn't against success, power, money. All that is part of life. All of that was part of the Vedic culture. They understand that as a human, we desire certain things at a certain stage of our life. There's no problem with that. Don't deny your human experience. You feel like a person living a life. Don't try to alter that. Don't try to see something that's not there. You feel like a person living a life. You want security. You want pleasure. Pursue them in an ethical way. That's why they would say do it in an ethical way. That's what Dharma is. Go about this life pursuing security, pleasure, without hurting anyone intentionally. Do it in an ethical way. When you get tired of that, that is when you're going to seek God realization or self-realization. It's a natural process. That's another thing. Hinduism isn't a converting religion. They're not going to force you to believe what they believe, because Hinduism is an umbrella term for many beliefs, by the way. There's so many ways on this path. So to sum up Hinduism in one teaching is ridiculous. But the whole general feel and vibe of Hinduism is, look, everyone is going to make it to the end goal. Everyone's just going about it differently. So let others be as they are. Whatever path resonates with you, follow that. We're all going to get there in the end. And also, to end this video, that is why also the teachings of reincarnation and karma are fundamental to Hinduism. Because they say there is the one source appearing separate. There is the one self experiencing all bodies and minds. Ultimately, I'm experiencing your life and you're experiencing mine. My true self and your true self, which is the true self of all. But as a person, we feel like there's time. We feel like there's past and future, which means, as Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, your true self isn't coming and going. There is no birth and death. You're infinite and eternal. But while you think there is birth, guess what? There's going to be death. While you think there is death, there's going to be birth. So your true self is infinite and eternal, but seen through the lens of a mind that can only see past and future. That's why they say you have past births and future births. You feel like you're living a life. Eventually that's going to end. You're going to experience another life and another life. That's what they're saying. What carries from life to life? Your habits and tendencies. If you are drawn to spirituality in this life, especially non-duality, they're saying in the past you would have been into this. Because to be into these non-dual teachings, it's such a niche topic. You're watching some guy in Australia talk about non-duality with Om symbols everywhere. You could be doing so much more with your time right now. But the very fact you're interested in this, while you could be pursuing pleasure, you could be pursuing a God, why are you into non-duality? They say because you're an old soul. You've been through so many lives of pursuing pleasure, security, devotion. Now you're ready for liberation. That's what they're saying. That's not my words, it's theirs. But basically, your soul is on a journey. Back home to the place you never left. Your soul is slowly evolving. The body comes and goes, but the soul continues. That's what they're saying. Much like, look at your life. You feel like the same self from a baby until now, but you've slowly evolved. You were a baby. That baby died in quotes, then you became a young person, a child. That child died in quotes, then you became an adolescent, then middle age, then old age. You're always experiencing a birth and a death. You're always experiencing the death of one phase of your life and the birth of another. But you, look at photos of when you're a baby. How is that you? How is that me? My hair was a lot lighter, and I had probably the same amount of hair because I was a baby. But if I look at myself as a baby in primary school, high school, in my 20s, in my 30s, and now, I'm not the same person. I don't look the same. I don't think the same. Completely different, but I still feel like the same, and so do you. Because your true self isn't coming and going, isn't evolving, but your subtle body, your soul is. And your body definitely is. So I'll just leave the video there, guys. Just to sum up, the Vedic culture, the underpinning of it was, it is the one appearing separate. They base their whole lifestyle around that understanding, the realization we've all got different roles to play. No one's better than anyone else. Also, we're all on the goal to liberation. And part of that goal is initially securing security, pleasure, doing it in an ethical way. When you get bored and tired of the toys of this world, then pursuing God realization or self-realization. Beautiful. Just focus on your path. You don't need to convert others, convince them. Everyone's fine. They're all on their own path. Whether in this life or the next or the next or the next. Beautiful teaching. I love it. So, as always, guys, I hope this video was informative. I'll end the video there and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. But until then, take care of yourselves, okay? See ya.